Have you heard about Auntie Bola? They say she borrowed plenty money and refused to pay. Some people are even saying the money.
Lagos never truly slept. Even in the deepest hours of the night, something was always awake, a generator humming, a dog barking, a couple arguing, or a bus horn screaming at the darkness. In Ajigonal, where zinc roofs pressed against each other and life spilled openly into the streets, sound was not just noise, it was survival. That was where Sod Adeyemi lived. Sod was 21, tall, restless, and sharp-eyed, with a voice that carried even when she whispered. She lived with her mother, Mama Sod, in a crowded compound where everyone shared water, toilets, and, most importantly, information. In that compound, secrets were rare, and privacy was a luxury no one could afford. From childhood, Sod had learned one thing very well: if you listened carefully enough, people would tell you everything. Sometimes with their mouths. Sometimes with their actions. Sometimes with silence. And Sod listened. She listened while fetching water, while standing in long queues, while braiding hair in the salon, while selling pure water under the hot sun. Her ears were always open, and her mind never rested. Talking made her feel alive. It made her feel seen. When Sod spoke, people leaned closer. When she lowered her voice, others lowered theirs too. She had a way of telling stories that made small things feel big and big things feel urgent. She didn't shout. She flavored her words. She added pauses, sighs, expressions. She knew exactly when to widen her eyes and when to shake her head slowly. "Oh, Lagos is not easy," she would say, and people would nod, waiting for what came next. At first, everyone loved Sod. Lagos people loved gist, it made hardship easier to carry. And Sod always had the freshest one. If a couple fought in the night, Sod knew by morning. If a landlord planned to increase rent quietly, Sod announced it before the notice reached the gate. If two friends greeted each other with stiff smiles, Sod already knew why. She didn't see it as wickedness. She told herself she was only repeating what she heard. After all, in Lagos, everybody talked. Why should she be different? The first time her words truly burned someone, she didn't realize it. Auntie Bola sold rice and stew by the roadside, just outside the compound. Her food was good, her hands were fast, but her smile always looked tired. She had 3 children and a life balanced on borrowed money. One afternoon, Sod passed by and heard raised voices behind the stall. Auntie Bola was arguing with her sister, tears in her eyes, frustration heavy in her voice. "You promised to pay me last month," the sister said sharply. "Please, just give me more time," Auntie Bola begged. "Business is slow." Sod slowed her steps. She wasn't trying to listen, but the words reached her anyway. She absorbed them, stored them, and moved on. That evening, while braiding hair in the salon, the story slipped out of her mouth like it had been waiting. "Have you heard about Auntie Bola?"
They say she
she
borrowed
asked
plenty money
casually.
and refused to pay.
The
Some
customer
people are
shook
even
her
saying
head.
the money is not clean.
"They say she borrowed plenty money and refused to pay. Some people are even saying the money is not clean."
What did you just
The
say,
customer
Shad?
gasped.
No way, that's unbelievable.
Another
I can't
woman leaned
believe my
closer.
ears. This is too
By the
much.
time Sod finished talking, the story had changed shape. It had grown close. By the next morning, customers hesitated at Auntie Bola's stall. By afternoon, people whispered when they passed. By evening, her pot was still half full. On the third day, Auntie Bola collapsed beside her cooking pot, her body giving up under the weight of hunger, shame, and fear. Her children cried. Neighbors rushed forward. Someone shouted for help. Sod stood at a distance, her chest tight, her throat dry. For the first time, she felt something uncomfortable twist inside her. But she said nothing. That night, Mama Sod asked quietly, "Sod, you know anything about what happened to Bola?" Sod shrugged, avoiding her mother's eyes. "Not just I hear." I didn't mean anything. Mama Sod stared at her for a long time, then turned away. Life moved on, as it always did in Lagos. Weeks later, another story found Sod. Ton was a quiet young man who lived 2 houses away. He didn't talk much, but everyone knew he was trying. After years of rejection, he finally got a chance at a job in Victoria Island. One afternoon, someone mentioned, carelessly, that Ton once had an issue years ago, something about a failed background check. Sod didn't know if it was true. She didn't ask. She only repeated it. People are saying there might be a problem with his past, she said, shaking her head like she was worried. By the next day, the rumor had reached the wrong ears. The job offer disappeared. Ton came to her that evening, his voice shaking, his eyes dark with disappointment. "Why would you say that about me?" he asked. Sod laughed nervously. "I only said what people were already saying." He stared at her, pain written plainly on his face. "Words can destroy, Sod." She waved him off, pretending not to care.
Lagos is hard.
Everybody must protect themselves. But that night, sleep avoided her. Still, she didn't stop. Gossip is like fire. It spreads easily, and it burns quietly, until the wind changes. One morning, Sod woke up and noticed something strange. People no longer greeted her with warmth. Conversations stopped when she entered the room. Whispers followed her steps. By evening, she heard the stories. They say Sod collects money to spoil people's names. They say she slept with a married man. They say she even lies to police. At first, she laughed. Who talked that nonsense? But the laughter faded quickly. The stories didn't stop. They multiplied. Each one sharper than the last. Suddenly, the girl who knew everyone's business had become everyone's business. Doors closed. Friends avoided her. Customers disappeared. Even the people who once begged her for gist now kept their distance. Mama Sod stopped talking to her. One night, Sod broke down, tears soaking her pillow. "They are lying about me," she cried. Mama Sod sighed deeply. "Now you know how it feels." Those words cut deeper than any insult. Desperate, Sod traveled to Bedigri to see her grandmother, Aya Monaki, a woman whose silence carried more weight than most people's speeches. After listening quietly, the old woman said softly, "When you throw stones into the market, do not complain when stones return to your house." Sod wept until her throat burned. Returning to Lagos, she tried something new. She kept quiet. When gossip started, she walked away. When rumors floated, she swallowed her words. It felt like suffocating. Silence was heavy. Silence was lonely. But slowly, things changed. People noticed. "She has changed," they whispered. Months later, made peace with Auntie Bola as she stood beside Auntie Bola, helping her reopen her store. She apologized to Tond, who nodded quietly. And when someone leaned close and said, "Have you heard?" Sod smiled gently. "No," she said. "And I don't need to." In a city that never stopped talking, Sod learned the power of silence, and Lagos learned it with her.